I'm the commander-in-chief. I'm looking at this situation. I've got to make a decision on what I'm going to do under these circumstances. What did Aristotle say about right reason? What did Aristotle say about prudence and wisdom? Deliberation, sometimes it has to be quick. You've got to go with a quick decision, sometimes not. In this case, it was relatively quick, but there was a lead up to the decision, right? The negotiations, the experience with Iran, and 50 years of experience. And so the president applies prudence. I don't think he's sitting there, or most presidents said, let me be prudential and do this. I'm describing what happened. The president uses his prudence, what he's learned, his knowledge, his experience, his understanding of what's taken place and what might take place. And he does the wise thing. He does the wise thing. It's not knee-jerk. He's not shooting from the hip. This is a man who is very reluctant to pull a trigger. He's not trigger happy, but he's concluded through prudence, not ideology, through a basic philosophical principle belief system, in the application of prudence, that this is the right thing to do. Now let's look at the people who are attacking him for doing what he did. What was the imminent necessity of doing this, they say? Now, can they possibly mean that when they say that? No. That's called propaganda. Well, okay, why didn't he come to Congress first? Come to Congress first for what? Congress already funded the military. It's funded everything that's out there that's being used. The president is the commander-in-chief under Article 2 of the Constitution. A declaration of war, we know, as we've discussed here ad nauseum, is not the power to make war. The power to make war belongs to a president. Congress has the power to cut off funding if it has the votes to do it, which it doesn't, or Congress has the power not to continue funds when the funding cycle comes up. That's how they ended the Vietnam War. The funding cycle is not up. So what power does Congress have? Congress has the power to act if it chooses to, but these votes on the War Power Acts, this is just drama. Number one, they're not going to pass, but number two, even if they do, the president doesn't even have to honor it. But here's my point. If they were able to succeed with the War Powers Act, they would have the power, according to them, and they don't, to tell the President of the United States, withdraw all of our troops, all of our equipment, withdraw everything right now. Now, that's not prudent, is it? In fact, that's suicidal, isn't it? The regime would have been left with not only its power to rebuild, its power to assert itself, because it still has its secret police and it still has its military. It doesn't have its missiles, it doesn't have its jets, it doesn't have its boats. It still has its military, it still has its infantry. So the regime would effectively still have the power to reconstitute itself and to go at it again with nuclear weapons, maybe 10 years, 20 years, maybe 5 years, or 2 years, who knows? That's why people say we need regime change. And what's meant by that is this regime needs to be defeated, like the Nazis were defeated, like Tojo was defeated. They have to be defeated in order so the people there can replace it with something else. And that's important to us, prudentially, because we want to survive too. And that regime does not want us to survive. So the president makes this decision. So if the Democrats were in power, what would they do? Well, we know what they would do. What did Obama do? He signed a deal that ensured that that regime would get a nuclear weapon, just not on his watch. So outrageous. Netanyahu came to the United States Congress, he was so concerned about it, and urged the Congress to vote against it. This is one of the reasons the Democrats hate him, because he took on their deal and he took on their president, our president, Obama, and he did it publicly. And this is why they hate Netanyahu, hate him. The reason the woke right, the isolationists, the ideologues, the reason they hate Netanyahu is because he's the greatest leader Israel's ever had, and he's defended that country like nobody else could. And when we say he's the Churchill of the Middle East, if not the Churchill of our times, there's a reason for that. Because Churchill, with our support, and the support, believe it or not, of the Russians, defeated Hitler and the axis of evil. Well, Netanyahu has done effectively the same with some obvious differences, but he defeated, these regimes that wanted to wipe out the Israelis. Also us, by the way. Also us. You know that ideology. So, ideology is formulaic. It's formulaic. It doesn't matter what your knowledge is. It doesn't matter what your experience is. You're going to impose a belief, much like the other side, because it's a belief you have and you're not going to give it up. Forever wars. We basically shouldn't fight any battles, any military operations outside of our own borders. Reagan used to call this, and he was very, very critical of it, Fortress America. He said, how can you have Fortress America when you have nuclear submarines, when you have aircraft carriers, when you have ballistic missiles, when you have nuclear missiles, when you have jet fighters and bombers? What's this Fortress of America stuff? That's suicide. We want to protect America, but we can't just build these invisible walls around the country as if other countries are going to honor it. They're not going to honor it because they're not isolationists, and it's not Fortress China and Fortress Russia and Fortress North Korea. No, it's quite the contrary. So this is why I've always thought understanding the great philosophers opens your eyes and enlightens you, me, to what's going on today. It's very interesting. For the Marxist, and I would say for the left generally, and now for these woke right isolationists, the world begins today. Now, they may try and apply some historical event or some philosopher to what they're doing, but that's not really how they're processing these things. The way they are is, we have a blank slate today. Woodrow Wilson wrote about this. We're not bound by the Declaration just because those men got together in the Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia and wrote this document and declared independence and fought the Revolutionary War. We're not bound by their document. Just like they had a right to write a document, we have a right to write a document. That is our future. And so he was among the first intellectual American Marxists. They called it progressivism. That's their nomenclature. That's what they called themselves. But they were steeped in the teachings of Marx and others related to Marx, and they applied that to the American system, which is why I wrote the book American Marxism. It's an American form of Marxism. It's not pure German Marxism or European Marxism or now Third World Marxism. It uses the freedoms and liberties that we have in this country to destroy our freedoms and liberties that we have in this country. Now, so when you understand that Marxists think this way, the world begins today, we have a clean slate, we look at history as an example of how we can take history and formulate it in a way that advances our agenda. We don't really want to learn from it, we just want to apply it in a certain way. And so sloganeering is important, manipulation of language is important, manipulation of people's minds, what they can and cannot study, what they can and cannot learn. We're not interested in free speech and debate, we're interested in this ideology, the greater will of the people. The worker's paradise. We have to destroy what exists, every vestige of it, the relationship of parent to child, this market system, which they then label capitalism. We have to destroy that. We have to destroy the culture. And by all means, we have to destroy the church and the synagogue, the whole thing, because that's mysticism. That's got to be destroyed. No faith. All of these ties to the past must be destroyed. It's an ideology. The reason Marxists, that is communism, applied has killed 100 million people, because it's an ideology that seeks to impose itself on human nature. It's an ideology that seeks to impose itself on the human character. It seeks to change what God created. Man. It seeks to limit the unique nature of man, the ability to reason, and motivated by self-interest, free will, that sort of thing. It tries to destroy it. And if you don't go along and you're an independent thinker and so forth, you've got to be eliminated. Islamism, same thing. We're imposing an ideology. We're not interested in debating it. We're not interested in knowledge and all this other stuff that Aristotle and Cicero and all these great thinkers thought about, Locke and Montesquieu. Oh, that's quaint. We are going to take control. We're going to impose what's right. Equality, equity, as understood by God, their interpretation of it, or forget about God, the Marxists say, as understood by man right here on earth, and everything else must be smothered. Ideology. If everything's a forever war, that means you can never take military action to protect yourself, because everything might lead to a forever war, whatever that means. And yet, on those occasions when you need to take military action or go to war, if you don't, you'll be in what? Forever slavery. Forever without liberty. So these are phrases that are thrown around, that are thrown out like, oh, you're a racist, so you can't debate issues that are intended to cut off a discussion, the use of knowledge, the use of what you see, prudence. So the president used prudence to enter the war, to create a situation in which we were going to deal with Iran. Prudence, virtue, wisdom, temperance. He used all those things. All those things, the way you're supposed to. And those who oppose him are running around with slogans. They have absolutely no other avenue on which to deal with the crises that he was dealing with. And so these are ideologues, some of the hard left, Marxists, some because they support the regime, political jihadi Islamists, and some because they're isolationists. And while they claim to be America first, they're not America first. They're a different form of ideologue that we've seen in the 1930s and we see now, which will destroy the United States. Folks, if you enjoyed this clip and you want to watch the entire episode, I'm telling you, you're going to love it. You can go to YouTube and subscribe, or go to Rumble and follow. And by the way, tell your friends and family too. I'll see you then.